All right, folks, up next on the Second Chance podcast, we're joined by Sarena Diamond, the CEO and founder of Diamond Solutions Group. With a career spanning Accenture, IBM, Pepsi Cola, and more, Serena has spent decades driving transformation and helping businesses achieve outstanding outcomes. But her story doesn't end with corporate success. After navigating personal and professional challenges, Serena launched her own second chapter, redefining success on her own terms. She's here to share her journey, inspire us with her resilience, and discuss her mission to help others become truly unstoppable. Welcome. Glad you're with
Wow.
us.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jeff. That was really lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to learn more about you. Um, you got some big names. When you work in just branding or marketing, those are some names that identify with just when you see their logo, you know who they are, and it's hard to separate from comfort and establish things. But you got this, you have this story that starts from there. What's that? Walk us through the pivotal moment when you decided to leave that corporate world and start your own thing, and then kind of layer in what inspired that, or what's that backstory that got you going.
Well, thank you for asking. So the point at which I decided to start my own thing really came from IBM was about to spin off Kindle, and we had about 10 months of advanced knowledge. And so I was in a role at the time that it was a shared service between the functions that were going to be spun off and some that were going to stay. And I really had to make some decisions about what I wanted to do next. And like a lot of people that were there, I was looking around, and I actually found an interview for a job that was very much full transition into just corporate transformation with another company. And I interviewed with the gentleman there that would eventually become my boss. Spoiler alert! And he started the interview with, "If half of your resume is true, where have you been all my life?" Now, I've joked that you're going to work for that guy, right? There's just no question if that's the opening line.
Yeah.
And he was a very charismatic leader. There was a lot of really good work that was done there, and I had a very big responsibility. But they had really recruited me out over their skis, and I, about 6 months into it, was doing exactly what they had wanted me to be doing. I did not see some of the politics of succeeding. I usually don't. I will be totally transparent, and mostly because a lot of people that I talk to that find themselves in transition, so much of the time it's because they're surprised. And a lot of times it's because they've been surprised that they've succeeded.
Yeah.
And there are other people that are not as comfortable with underlings, in this case, 2 levels down, not the guy that I interviewed with, but he eventually was also a part of the list that was gone. So here I was, my dream post corporate job, gone, and a very, very silencing severance package expectation. I had
Yeah.
signed a whole bunch of things. I don't even use the company name. It's not hard to figure out. But I didn't know, I was so taken aback by this message. The funny story of that moment, I actually hopped onto a Zoom call with my scheduled weekly call with him, and HR was on the phone. And I know lots of people say that, "Oh yeah, I should have known." I actually thought that day, "Oh great, we're finally going to get this
That's
open
right.
hire
Yes,
position
that's right.
that we were trying to get resolved.
They've got
We're going to."
questions for me. This is so great.
It was exactly what I thought. This is awesome. We're going to finally get it resolved.
I
And
finally
then
get to. They're going to listen to my complaint about this one thing. This is great. What, Serena? Tell me real quick for context. What year are you talking about here?
so this was December 15th of 21.
Okay, all right. So just for context, like there's economic uncertainty still lives because you're coming out of COVID,
Sure.
all the things, right? Okay, all right. Just wanted to give
And
everybody an idea. I always insert myself. All right, here's where my situation would have been then if I'm Serena. All right. So
well, and the hard part is the personal stuff that was also going on at the time. I spent most of my IBM career as a single parent,
Yeah.
really dedicated to raising adult children. And I had one adult child that was now going through, graduated, as we lovingly refer to, graduated on my sofa in May of 2020,
Right.
with big dreams that were completely closed, as most college kids that graduated. That, I'm not
Yeah.
saying she was
Yeah.
anything different, but she was going through some very difficult mental health issues
I
that were
bet.
still going on in 21. And so it's not affecting my work necessarily, but it's very internalized, and
Yeah.
I'm juggling all the things, and this happens, and we had a family vacation planned to go to Hawaii, and the flights were booked, but that was all. But people that lose their job in a big corporate setting, we went.
Yeah.
And actually it was going for a run in the hills of Oahu that I said, you know what, I'm going to work for the one boss I know I can trust. And I came back and said, I'm going to give it a try. I have enough severance, because they did
Yeah.
have guilty severance associated with that, knowing that they were out over their skis when they had hired me. And um, I was one of the lucky ones that had enough time financially, but it was never as much for me about the finances as it was about who I was as a professional, the
Yeah.
contributions that I made as an organization. And I was leveled for about 30 days.
You didn't see it coming, right? So
Not at
you're
all.
still like you're still think yours. There's no. That's really like in what I hear. Serena is like it's you take so much ownership in that job that you've overlooked, like the just a bigger picture or the yeah.
Well, and the hard part for me was that this was not. I had been, one of the roles that I served at IBM. I was the executive responsible for staffing and workforce management, staffing of consultants on client engagements for a long time. And through the period of my tenure in that role was also quarterly layoffs. So while I didn't have to choose the people that were being laid off, I did have to figure out how are we going to solve the client problem when the people that are about to be named are no longer there. And the trauma of doing that, survivor guilt, is very real. And we're not talking about a small number of people.
Yeah.
So, and it was quarter after quarter after quarter. So the toxicity of that, you would have thought I would have been more prepared. I wasn't, which was good, because I said, if I'm ever really prepared for this job, I got to check out and do something different. The harder part was this was not the first time in my career it had happened. I had been working at Mellon Investor Services when 9/11 and Enron took out 60% of the
Yeah.
business that I was the business unit general manager for. And I didn't see it coming. I was dealing with personal things going on again at home. I think there's maybe there's
Thing. Yeah.
a thing that goes with that.
Yeah.
I was about to become a single parent. I did not know it at the time, but I was. But as I refer to it as the blonde cliche, 9/11 and Enron tried to kill, the three of those things together tried to kill me. But I did not, like, I picked myself up from that and took a little while to figure out, and took a safe job at IBM. And I was there for 18 years, so it wasn't like it wasn't, it wasn't a safe job at the time. But um, so I keep thinking I should have been more prepared. It wasn't the first time that I had been
Right.
in that, that conversation. But nothing prepares you. I don't care how many times, nothing prepares you for hearing your boss read a script
Yeah.
that starts with, it's unfortunate that we must have this conversation, something to that effect, where it's, and so many people I hear now, so many women, especially women, because I've been joining networking groups that are really, I joined the Chief Network. I've been part of some of that. I think I told you, I wrote a chapter in an anthology of for women that were helping women become entrepreneurs. And I talked to so many that are in this same place where they're shocked, they are successful, and yet they're in transition as the
Yeah.
that's the phrase now, right? In transition, they were laid off, or they were fired, or they were riffed, or whatever the term is. But nobody prepares you for what that's, what that does, all the things that go with it.
um, yeah, especially like you said, you got severance. That's one thing, but the script stuff, and I've seen it become more and more just because of the legality of separation. And we've kind of. I told someone the other day they were frustrated with how something goes. I'm like, that's kind of our fault. I mean, we're the one. We created every little box that all of the things have to fit in, and. I got some friends that were a lady, Brenda's going to be on the show here in a couple weeks. Um, she does a lot of work in HR and things along those lines. So it's very procedural. And you used to be able to walk in and be like, hey, Serena, I guess there's some bad news coming down the pipe. You can really get prepared for it. But, nowadays there's so many repercussions by someone giving you firsthand knowledge or so we've created this negative on top of the negative that's already a crappy negative anyway.
And I 100% understand. I mean, certainly
Yeah.
IBM, there were so many lawsuits for age or any kind of discrimination, but at the end of the day, there's a human being there. And
Oh yeah.
I never was okay with being the deliverer of the message that you should just be the cold,
Yeah.
it's because you're a human being and they're a human being, and there needs to be some humanity put back in that, because you shouldn't be, traumatizing people because HR says here's the script.
It stretches back because they want us to use. I'm not a W two, in well, I'm a part time W two, but I don't. I do my own thing now, right? So, but like even me, and when I had my last brick and mortars family, that we wanted our work team to be work family and the camaraderie, and next thing you know, that's when you get into a situation like this, there becomes a very, very business. This is how this has to be administered type thing, and families out the door. There's no,
Well, and that's the hardest part when you think about the fact that there isn't anybody on the receiving end that did something in
yeah,
this kind of situation that would warrant it, right? That's the piece that is missing from all of the traditional HR, rigor, that says it is the leadership's responsibility
yeah,
to have made decisions that took the business in a direction that requires them to then terminate someone.
yeah,
It's not the recipients in maybe there's some, I'm sure, for performance, but
yeah,
that
yeah,
not usually the surprise
yeah. That's
in
yeah,
transition
yeah.
for business, right? And that's the piece that is lacking in this. I mean, people can understand it, but when you leave people feeling that they don't have a way to overcome something that they can't overcome, I mean,
That's a good
it's great
point.
if
Yeah,
you can.
you hit it right. You said a couple things there, Serena. That is very. Um, like you said, is I've been fired for doing dumb stuff, right? I've been fired, but it's hard to say that, man, I got fired for being a high performer.
Right, right. And there's so many people that's what when I talk to folks, and even for myself, it took me the moment to say, wait a minute, I didn't have a lobotomy the day before this
Yeah.
happened. Like, I know that I was still being that high performer. And that's the piece that allowed me to buoy, myself into going out on my own. And honestly, it was the best decision ever. I have been so busy, in such demand. I didn't. I made a point to say I am not going to turn away any work. I have worked for this, actually, in 2024. I had a $1 billion professional services company contract for a workforce management restructure and piece of work.
Yeah.
And I had a COO, fractional COO role for a $100 million professional services company in the automotive industry. But the best part about both of those were the teams that I got to work with one, my choice,
Yep.
but two, really, really committed to growing, committed to being the right. I used to say at IBM every quarter when we would go through the reduction in force, I would say, you don't cut your way to growth ever, ever. You can't. That you plants don't do that. It's not, we're not pruning. We've been way past the pruning. And then when you find companies that understand that growth requires change, not cutting, and certainly not once you get down into the, the high talented people.
Did you in 2021 September, I think is what you said. Did you think at that point in time, well, this is just setting me off for something bigger and better, or were you like, now, but now to hear you say that, you got a little chip on your shoulder, like I worked for the billion and the team, right? But there's a point in time, probably during this time, you're like, what was that like for you when you get to that separation? You're getting ready to start the business. Was there anxiety that you were going to struggle to succeed, or did you kind of know that it was just your calling?
No, I would love to say, oh, I was confident that it was going to work. I hadn't been an entrepreneur since I would. I jokingly referred to I was turning away all of my DNA
Yeah.
because my entire family are entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, like, and not big, very, selling
Yeah.
things, like restaurant owners, like,
Yep.
normal human beings that you, and um, so I did not know, but I one of the things that I didn't know was that failure was an option. Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't even accept that that was a possibility, but I didn't know where it was going to come from. And I started a whole bunch of things. Like, I was messaging on LinkedIn. I was messaging people that I, certainly in my network, but outside of my network, they had posted a job that I could do. I didn't want the job full time. What I would message people and say is, I see you're hiring a COO in this space. I see all the job requirements. I could do that job for you, but I don't want the full time role. So here's what we could do. How about I come in and I fill the gap? You keep interviewing. I hit the ground running. I will hold your business operations, hold it together for you. Then I will smoothly transition this when you find your, because COO roles take 6 months to find.
Yeah.
What are you going to do in the 6 months? And so I've actually done that role where I come in within a week or so. I can get the whole lay of the land. I can keep your team moving,
Yeah.
and the transformation or the strategic work that you were doing, that keeps going while the rest of the C-suite does their job and looks for their full-time person. I don't stay. I've been offered. It's funny. One of my claim to fames I figured out recently is that I've been offered a job in all but one of my clients.
That's awesome.
It is awesome, and I've never taken it,
Yeah.
which is also
Which is
awesome
it cool? Yeah. Sorry. So
because
hey, you talk about that. That's freedom. Like that's when I teach, when I'm working on new entrepreneurs or someone who's like this, I'm like, no, you're not trying to buy. Money's going to be a byproduct of what you do, but you're trying to find time and freedom, and you want to get as much of that for you can. And when you can go back to 2021 and the uncertainty, and you can look at someone and say, "Thank you, but no thanks. I'm really happy doing my own thing." Big deal.
it is a
Huge
really
deal.
big deal. It is, and it's cool because I will tell you that I've been very tempted, not because of the money or the security, but because the client culture that I've worked in, I've chosen to work in the places where I've chosen to be. But I say to clients all the time, I am not ever going to create a dependency that you should have on me. I'm
Yeah.
here to create capability in you, in your leadership team, in your managers. And that's my 100% my goal. I never want somebody to feel like they're dependent on me because from my very early in my career at Accenture, I remember being on a client long term. We were actually at Johnson and Johnson for almost 3 years. And there was the discussion going on about fee fatigue, because after a while, clients get tired of paying consultant fees.
Yeah.
Everybody should be aware of that. Of course you do. It's a big nut depending on what your, what the organizational change is that is ahead. And I have always said I never want somebody to go, God, how much money are we paying her? Like, I want to be done and created capability at the
Yeah.
point at which they're still looking for more things for me to do. But it's, you talk about the freedom. It is so flattering to have a client environment say, you get us, you make us better, we'd like you to come on board. And I say, I am here for you day and night forevermore, but I will not work for you.
Yeah. Moving on.
And it's, you're right. That's the freedom part that makes it. Um, it is the best part of this. I tell people when they're on the fence, well, do you think I can do it? Do you not think I can do it? I love one being able to do it. And everybody says, oh, business development. How do you do business development? There are some really good talent sourcers out there. Catalent is my new favorite one. BTG has done some, I've done work for both of them. Clients are calling them, big names, Fortune 50. Clients are calling them and saying, I need an expert. Oh, by the way, I don't want to pay expertise prices
Yeah.
to hire somebody. I need a short term somebody with 30 years experience doing exactly what I've done. And I love those kind of things, right? I love being able to step into a client where they don't even know that they could find somebody out in the marketplace that they don't have to hire. You could easily go hire for, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but you don't need that. You need leadership capability, and then somebody that's actually going to build capability in the existing team.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm about.
Yeah, that's a neat role. I do a lot of I come alongside like maybe some solo and some small teams. That's been my kind of the I really helped my one of my original jobs was I helped an owner. We grew into a dealership. It was started off with a couple of us, and we ended up with about 90 people manufacturing all sorts of stuff. So I just wanted to go chase kind of my own stuff. Great relationship with them, and but same thing. That's always been kind of my opportunity is to come alongside those teams or solopreneur, and I kind of like yourself. They're like, hey, we want you to come work, I'm not exactly where you are. I've got two kids, and they're young, so we're figuring those out. So I always entertain every opportunity, but like that's kind of the same thing where I'm able to come alongside, integrate my skills, elevate the team, get the team moving in the right direction, or help the solopreneur develop those just those extra. He's like, I need extra eyes, and which is works great for me. I just come alongside and I start doing things I know how to do, and he's learning me, and I'm like, yeah, give me that. But then when I'm seeing, he's like, man, that's what I needed was you looking for this stuff. So it's like yours is way up the chain though when it comes to just the names probably, but then just the people and then the number of people that you're working with. It's crazy.
Well, it is crazy, but it is, at the end of the day, they're all still very, very, mostly very driven people, right? The leaders, I've turned down a couple of engagements that are early in the interview cycle. And I just knew it was. I've had a CEO interview me that said, "I know what the problem is. They just need to do what I'm telling them to do."
Yeah.
And I'll
It's a
go pretty
problem.
far. I'll go pretty far down the process, and I'll be like, at some point, you're not gonna like the fact that I'm gonna say, "You're the CEO. You need
Yeah.
to look in the mirror. If they're not doing what you want them to do, it's probably not their fault."
Yeah.
Right. I'm kind. But one of the best compliments I ever got from a client, she said, "You have a level of kind accountability. We are better when you're here. We do things, but you're always kind, but we never think we're going to get away with anything."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, because I had teenagers by myself, and they didn't get away with anything either.
That's too funny. You touched on in your notes about some personal and then professional betrayals that layered into kind of your story. And I wanted to touch on one of those if you had one of each that you wanted to share because that, a lot of folks don't know how to process it. You've learned and you've listened, right?
Right.
And just some advice that just kind of the situation and then some advice you could give to our listeners because that's a hard one to overcome.
And they all tend to follow in the same story, right? And it's always, I am very trusting.
Yeah.
I take face value. If you tell me it's what it is, I refer to the blonde cliche as ruining my marriage. Um, and everybody knows what that sounds like, and it's exactly what it sounds like. That the fact that that was going on at the exact same time that I had a very big job
Mm.
at Mellon Investor Services, and I had a very lot of responsibility there, which happened to be an hour and 20 minutes with no traffic in New York City. So, there's always traffic. Um, but I was going through, I did not see it coming, as most people don't, but it happened all at the same time. So I
Wow.
was right. The 9/11 and Enron was taking out the business, and I'm having to have conversations with the C-suite about the book of business that we're supposed to be running, administering. There isn't going to be any profit from it because nobody is exercising stock options when there's no value in those stock options, right? That was what we were doing. And the fact that at the same time I'm finding out what's going on in my home life because I happened upon an email, because I happened upon some of those kinds of ways women find out
Yeah.
were quite shocking. And they're not having any air in your lungs kind of feeling coming all together was just unbelievable. There was a point at which, and I am still the closest of friends with 9 women who part of my, we call it the Girls Night Out group. I've been friends with them for over 30 years. I had a evening emergency Girls Night Out dinner with them because I was telling them goodbye. I didn't think I could get up the next day.
Yeah.
And my one friend Lisa, who to this day they all told she's the one, you always have that one
Yeah.
friend who's just has no filter. They all told her, you have to keep your mouth shut, keep your mouth shut, keep your mouth shut.
Mm.
And she let me say goodbye and do all the crying things that I was doing with these wonderful women. And finally, about, I don't know, half an hour into it, she said, okay, do it. And everybody's like, shut up, shut up. And she said, go ahead, kill yourself. And then the home wrecking slut is raising your children.
Yeah.
And that was literally like the cold, I think about that, the cold
Yeah.
water that I needed to reset some of that personal trauma that she knows to this day that she's the reason that I'm still here.
Yeah.
We joke about it often. Our children are all grown.
Mm.
Her daughter just got married recently.
That's too good.
and, and, um, and they are my biggest, personal and professional cheerleaders. They're friends we met in daycare. I tell women all the time, keep your friends really close because you don't know how they're going to, and we don't work together. There is nothing
Yeah.
professional overlapping. We all have kids in about a 2-year span.
It's
And
still a good friend that is willing to not let you, right? There's accountability
right,
that we look for.
right,
And that's past a good friend. That's a great friend, right?
she is.
That's a big deal.
She
So,
is.
so here's what I heard, and for the folks, man, we're all consumed inside of our own stuff, and having this person from the outside come in and just say, "Yeah, this is not normal. You're not going to lay in your emotions, and just give you a little bit of it's the just." Someone inside of that situation sometimes enables that conversation, and they enable you to be, oh, woe is me, and all this other thing. Someone who comes out and is like, no, that's not normal. No, we're not going to do that.
Right.
Um, that's really good. It's propelled you. This whole thing has put you to the point. Where did your book come in? You got your book, Becoming an Unstoppable Woman Entrepreneur.
Yep, right here.
Um, yeah, where is this? Is this? Did you write this after the fact? Before? When did
Um,
it come in?
Actually, I was invited to write a chapter in. It came out just last year in spring of 24. In spring of 23, I was invited to participate. There's
Yeah,
19 other women that wrote their stories, their entrepreneurial journey, and I started the book. I responded to the opportunity, the invitation to participate because I wanted something to be able to talk about. I
yeah.
thought if I could have, other things, where's content to be able to talk about so that people would know who I was and that I was doing my own thing. Because as much as you want to believe that this network of people that you've worked with, in my case, for 18 years, I had worked with thousands of people at IBM. I had thought a really strong network of people who all cheered me on. I said, I'm doing my own thing, cheered me on. And they all said, congratulations, go for it. We know you're going to do great. I'm like, no, no. What I really want you to do is say, hey, my client needs somebody with your
Yeah.
skills. And so I was looking for ways to have something to talk about. So I wrote the book, or I wrote the chapter, participated in the publishing process. The funny thing about it was with and I my story's in there. I always say mine is one story. There, it's not the like it's just one of the 20 stories in there. There's a woman in there at 65 years old. She started her own cannabis company.
Yeah.
Now, that's not my thing, but oh my gosh, good on you for
Yeah.
being able to be that brave, right? But I, unlike apparently others, I bought 100 copies. And people laugh. They're like, no, no, you were supposed to sell the book, not buy the book. But I bought it and I give it away.
Yeah.
So when women are starting the journey and they're not sure, it might not be my story that's inspiring to them, but they might be the cannabis woman story. There are
Yeah.
other women here that are really, really inspiring, women and men. And I literally, I have a small, about half of them left, and I mail them off. And I will say that I'll have this conversation with somebody who's thinking about it. Like, listen, just give me your mailing address. I know it sounds kind of creepy, but give me your mailing address and this will be in the mail for you.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. And it's, if nothing else, it's somebody that believes in them. Like, I wish that I had had somebody that said to me, I love that everybody had such confidence in my skills that they just said, congratulations, go for it.
Yeah.
I wish somebody had said to me, and here's how.
Yeah.
Here's what you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
You're going to, and that's one of the women that did say that to me. She said, stop saying or. Yes, you could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. She said, do and. Just do
Yeah.
everything.
Just do
And
it.
that's
Yeah.
do and. The power of and.
You're right. Even myself, as I was like, I really want to get into doing my own thing. I knew my skill set. It took me a while to figure out my skill set, but it was even harder for me to. Everybody's like, "You'll be fine. You'll do good." Everybody made the assumption that I was busy.
Oh, for sure.
Right? They're all like, I'm sure if he needed anything, he'd let us know or whatever. And a lot of times I'd be like, I need some clients, everyone. I need some clients. So, like you said, it's giving you the path or giving you that first little, a connection or whatever. Sometimes those are helpful.
Well, and then one of the things that I will say is that in the almost 3 years that I've been in business, I've never stopped continuously learning new ways to do this, even though, my entrepreneurial DNA should have taken in and it kicked in and I didn't think I could be quiet. I didn't work in the fourth quarter, which is odd for me to actually say out loud. It's the only time in almost 3 years that I was not at least one client or two. Lots of times I was 60% on more than one client because that was what they
Right.
needed and I didn't say no. But in the fourth quarter, it just so happened I had finished an engagement that was much more lucrative because I didn't really want to do it initially.
Yep.
So it was, and I thought there was going to be follow on work. So it was priced appropriately so that it wasn't from a financial perspective as much as it was all of a sudden I found myself without an active engagement. A
Yeah.
couple things queued up for 25, but nothing there. And I actually dedicated the time. I joined another networking group called Success Champions, and they are all about B2B for small business people. But the mindset, the ability to learn new ways of approaching the challenge of being a solopreneur, every single day I learn something through that
Yeah.
group. And every single day I learn a new way of approaching. Just today, we had a whole conversation this morning about new ways of having the opportunity to create more impact and my ability, because it's, for me, I am beyond the point of, it's not just to, I don't have any tuition to pay anymore.
Yeah. That's
I've
right.
done that. Phew, I survived that. But I still want to be providing impact. I learned so much in those 30 plus years in corporate. I want to be able to help other leaders to learn from the things that they shouldn't have to learn it the hard way.
Yeah.
Nobody should everybody should be able to, your chat GPT version of organizational change, call me. I will fix it for you. I will show you how to do it. I will teach you what you didn't know so that you don't have to learn it the hard way.
you help them bring in positivity and enthusiasm, and that sometimes falls into these areas that are often resistant to change. What are some? Tell me more about that. What is your you whenever you throw in the positive and enthusiasm, I'm there. So tell me.
It's funny that you asked that because there's lots of people that will say, like the CEO who said, just make them do it.
Yeah.
And I will say to people, you can try, you can try to force it, right?
Yep.
Change will happen for a short period of time when you force that. And the best experience that, like, everybody can relate to is the return to office mandate.
Yeah.
And I know it's silly because people are like, oh, aren't we over that? Well, we're not, because there's still organizations that are struggling. But the return to office mandate was the thing that drove so many people. And you could see where the culture shifts happened, where leaders were actually able to acknowledge, wow, I've just got done for a year and a half telling our teams how effective and efficient they were and how proud of them I were in this. Now they have to come back
I got
because
my
we need
point.
to be more efficient or effective. But what was really funny was when I was working, I had two different clients at the time trying to figure out what we were going to, how are they going to make this culture better? And one of the things that they were struggling with was how to deal with the return to office conversation. What was really funny was, we spent a ton of time talking about just make them do it. Just, that. And I said, so let's be really clear. Who's going to leave? Your high performers who don't have to stay,
Yep.
your women who are already overloaded, and you're already, and this one client had 57 to 43% demographic, right? 57% of their workforce was women. It was just the natural, the industry they were in. But what was so funny was, and they're millennials, right? That's the third group of people that are like, to you, I'm out.
Yeah.
This isn't what I want. And so, one of the things that I have always said is, if you think people come to work every day, they wake up in the morning with anticipation, they're anticipating doing something good, and they get through the whole day. And at the end of the day, they've been successful if they can have a sense of accomplishment. We didn't talk about where they did that. And so, one of the things that I talked about with a lot of the leaders was, how do you bring that optimism for create an anticipation for what they're going to accomplish today and give them an opportunity to have a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day? That balance, those opportunities, and bring positivity into, for example, you're bringing people into the work for collaborative opportunities. It's harder to be a leader in the new way of working, in the future way of working, or in the world of now, of what, the now of work as opposed to the future of work. But if you think about people wanting to come to work every day with a positive attitude, wanting to do something good, very few people come into the office or show up at work and go, how can I get by and skate by with the least
Yeah.
amount of effort possible? But if you really do think about that, and I'm also a very big believer, only because I've seen it over and over and over again, people resist change only because they fear it. It
Yeah.
is not right. They don't see themselves in the future vision.
Yep.
They don't understand how they're going to get there.
We don't
They
talk. They communicate. Start gossiping each other.
Right.
Yeah.
But if a leader says, oh, they're afraid of the future vision, they don't know it, they don't understand it, they don't know how we're going to get there, they don't see themselves in that picture. You come at your leadership responsibilities a whole lot differently when it's fear based as opposed to just being a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Right? If you think that they're just being arms folded curmudgeons, you come at them differently. But as a leader that's really about being positive and being optimistic and being inclusive of the fear and the goal of overcoming that fear in the change, the whole thing works. I've said so many times, there are lots of ways to solve problems, and there's lots of ways that will work, but I can tell you what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Telling them what to do, deciding these draconian moratoriums that says you will do this. Well, guess what? They're not actually servants. They're not indentured to you. There's no right. And even if they were, that's not even respectful, right?
Yeah.
If you can respect what they're coming to the table with and have that positivity in the approach that you take as a leader, I have always seen it work 100% of the time. Even I've had clients that said, "You're never going to get that guy in that location to come over." Okay,
Yeah.
challenge accepted.
People generally don't leave companies, they leave bad bosses and bad culture.
100%. There
Yeah.
was a study recently that talked about the amount of stress an individual experiences, and that their boss, their manager, is a higher percentage of an individual's stress than every other factor, including spouse and children and
Yeah.
parents and your boss.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity for everybody that has a leadership responsibility. There's your opportunity. Just do something good. Just try to do something. I there were certainly toxic bosses at IBM, and it's people talk about it all the time. It's not unlikely. And I used to say, do you look in the mirror when you brush your teeth? Do you actually look at yourself and think, yeah, today's the day I'm going to just be horrible? And there are people that, for whatever reason, maybe they've got this, something that's rolling downhill from them, but I always thought it needs to stop with me. If it happens to me, fine, but it won't happen from me. I will never pass that on to people that work for me. And I actually had a guy at IBM worked for me and then took a job two more times working for me,
Yeah.
and I love that. I used to say to him, why? He said, well, let me tell you, you expect a lot, but you don't expect any more of us than you do of yourself.
Yeah.
And he said, that's the kind of boss that I always want to work with. Because I never use the term that people work for me. They
Yeah.
work with me.
With
It
me.
just so
Yeah.
happened that, right.
Yep.
And that's a big piece that makes organization change happen.
I tell them all the time, especially when I had a team, was like, listen, I'm just a part of this team. My job is to assemble all you all together. All right. I'm moving money from this account to that account. All right. Other than that, we're all in. I've got the same role you do. We need to take care of people. We need to do our things. We're mission focused. Um, and that's kind of how we ran our shops as well. It's like I have a job here just like you all do. I'm the one that just, but I need y'all to hold each other accountable, and we really built that in. And when you can find that within your teams, and it's assembling the right teams. I use Disc, we use different things
Sure.
to help get that together. But if you can get that team there to where everybody is running on all cylinders and getting the mission and looking toward the how it affects we versus me type
For
mentalities, and
sure.
man, it's so amazing to watch.
Well, and Jeff,
Um,
that speaks volumes to you your confidence in your skills too. One of the things that I see a lot of times with leaders that can't do that,
yeah,
it's because they don't necessarily have belief in their
yeah,
own skill set. And
yeah,
so they're hiding behind some of that. I love it when everybody in the room is smarter than me.
yeah.
I worked at IBM Research for the first 4 years of my literally everyone in the building. The maintenance men were smarter than me. Everybody knew the principles of argon. Don't be putting that in the sun. Like every single person was smarter than me, and I loved every bit of that. And I loved because I love learning from other people. I used to joke that the research. I mean, there are more PhDs in that building in the IBM research facility where I worked than in all of Westchester County, New York.
That's awesome.
It was awesome, and they were brilliant, and I didn't understand most of the things they talked about, but they also couldn't create business
Yeah,
opportunities, so we had a balance.
yeah.
And that's the important part. So I love that you were able to acknowledge that yourself as well, confident in
It's been
what you're
growth.
bringing to the table, right?
Yeah, no,
Yep.
but like it's growth, right? It's growth, and it's finding comfort in your failures. It's finding all the things that you're truly afraid of when you're a new employee, or trying to figure out things is and I told my last guest, me and I struggled with adulting versus how other people didn't, right? So I had just a whole different mentality of what was what, and it took years for things to kind of take hold to me. Just like yourself, Serena, is I really enjoy helping people who is where I was or somewhere similar, so they don't experience that same issues. Let me help you overcome this so you can get in here and do what I know you can do.
Right. And
Man,
that's awesome.
you've done well. And you gotta like there's so much inside of that. Um, I see it all unfolding on your stage while you're telling the story of your life of how you've because when you look at just female entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, as we call it in a project that I work on, is um, you deal with being a mom and all the things, and there's an extra burden, and you have just experienced the woes of that to find this freedom
For
in where
sure.
you are now, right? And that's always that second chance podcast and the resilience that we talk about in the moment that you had where you're like, okay, 9 friends, I'm done, I'm leaving, and the one friend who's like, no, this is bullshit, right?
Right.
Call you out
This
on
is
your
it.
stuff, and right, so like it's oh man, you've I touched on all the things that I've heard tonight that spoke to me, and it's just amazing to get to know you, and of what we can accomplish in 40 to 50 minutes, right? But as we close here, what advice do you give that lady that's maybe not quite where you were, but close to it, but is just seeking their own paths to redefine their success?
I would absolutely say if you haven't found your tribe of people, those people that
Ah,
will not just support you, not just cheer you on, but will clear the path and say, "Hey, let me help you." Or, "Hey, did you meet somebody else? Hey, let me connect you to." Keep looking.
yeah.
Keep, because you just haven't found them yet. I met this young, very young startup person, and I just was so inspired with the work that she was doing. I reached out to her on LinkedIn and I said, I just got to tell you, I love what you're doing. I didn't know how new she was at it, didn't know any of her background. We have stayed together. It was a couple of years now, and she actually has me on her board of advisors, and she's going to truly change the world.
Oh, that's so
But
great.
I have said to her the same thing. Who else? I can't be the only one. But when you find those people, champion that and do not stop looking until you find it. And if you haven't found it and you're still struggling to find it, look me up on LinkedIn, call me. I will find a way to get those connections, because that's all that matters. When you find your people, and those people that are going to do more than just cheer you on, they're going to help you up. They're going to stand behind, they'll cheer for you, but they will also put out a hand and help pull you up that the next over the next
Yeah,
obstacle. Those are there's a lot of us out here, right? There's a lot of people that are out here wanting to help.
yeah,
You just have to keep looking. And if you don't find it yet, and you still haven't found it, like I said, call me. I have the benefit of a unique name,
yeah.
so I'm on LinkedIn, and I will absolutely help. That is what is all this whole chapter of my life is about helping other people, whether they be leaders that are clients, or whether they be other people that are trying to find their next, their second chance, their next chapter.
LinkedIn, best way to get in touch with you.
That's
Website.
the fastest. Website, Diamond Solution Group LLC.
Yep.
But both of those are in there, and but LinkedIn, I'm on it pretty common, pretty every day. And you can message me there.
Yeah.
Um, I'm pretty luckily, as long as you spell it right. I'm one of the only Serena Diamond out there spelled with an A.
Yeah, it's
Um,
awesome.
luckily for that, my mom picked my first name, and I got my dad's last name. So
That's too cool. We're going to bookmark this as we do with
perfect,
everyone, and then I do a little blog post as well. So
fantastic.
it'll all complement. You touched on something that I speak about, and when it comes to folks what Serena just talked about with if you're not in a room full of people who's lifting you up, you're in the wrong room. And if you know where you're supposed to be and you feel it and you're just not you're just that one connection away. And here's what I talk about is the two R's is creating as many meaningful relationships as you can, right? And just never taking those relationships for granted. It's no different two strangers meeting on a podcast on tonight, right? Of just
Right.
how we have an understanding of each other, and I'm very grateful that this relationship that I've created, just getting to know you tonight. If you'll take care of those and nurture those, and then if you'll guard your reputation, if you'll just take care of those two R's, like the ebbs and flows of your career, Serena, in Fortune 500, that reputation had to step in there somewhere to get you to your. So no matter how bad that firing or separation was, or whatever it looked like, your reputation and your relationships have propelled you through your next one. And I would say that second R, just knowing and getting to know you, your reputation has probably played a big role in that as well. So I just wanted to close on that because
I
when you
love that.
touched on like it was like teed me up for just how passionate I am. Because when people will come to me and they're like, "Jeff, I'm struggling to sit down," and I go, "You're just talking to the wrong people." They're like, "What the crap do you mean by that?" And I'm like, "Here, go see this person. They're more in tune with what you're doing. They have a better, they have a better knowledge. You can explain it a little better to them, maybe, but ask them if they know someone." And man, that's such a powerful way to end this episode. It's just you letting everybody know that that's one of the most. It's not the MBA. It's not the thousands and thousands of followers. It's the just the smallest things of the relationship that you have.
Fantastic.
Um, Thanks for joining us. I can't wait to have you back on. I'd love to just check back in and on some of your projects of all the goods stuff that you're putting out there and the successes that you have because it helps all of us and it gives us all hope. But thank
Love
you
that.
for being with us tonight, Serena. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Jeff.